The skies above Talver Prime had burned for 3 straight days. Not metaphorically. Actually burned. Entire oceans boiled beneath clouds of black ash while pieces of the planet's outer crust cracked apart like thin ice under enormous pressure. From orbit, the world looked diseased, glowing fractures spreading across continents, rivers of molten fire cutting through cities that had stood for thousands of years. And above it all floated the warship Judgment of Varos. Silent, patient, untouched. Inside the massive command chamber, Supreme Warlord Kale Varos watched the destruction through a wall-sized viewing screen without emotion. His species, the Xyrath Dominion, had ruled the outer spiral arms of the galaxy for nearly 4 centuries. Entire civilizations disappeared when the Dominion arrived. Talver Prime had lasted 11 days. Longer than expected. Not long enough to matter. Behind Varos, hundreds of officers moved across elevated command platforms beneath cold blue tactical lights. No one celebrated. The Xyrath did not cheer for conquest anymore. Victory had become routine long ago. A tactical officer approached and lowered his head. Surface resistance has ended, Supreme Warlord. Varos said nothing. The officer continued carefully. The Talver Governing Council is requesting surrender negotiations. That finally earned a response. Varos turned slightly in his command throne, his silver-black armor reflecting the dim bridge lights. Negotiations. The officer swallowed. Yes, Supreme Warlord. On the main screen, the final surviving Talver defense station drifted above the burning planet with half its structure missing. Small civilian transports were launching from beneath it, desperate evacuation attempts. Varos studied them for a moment. Then he spoke calmly. Destroy the station. The officer hesitated only half a second. And the evacuation vessels? Varos looked back toward the dying planet. If they wished to survive, he said quietly, they should have surrendered on the first day. The officer bowed immediately. As commanded. Moments later, bright streams of white energy crossed the darkness outside. The station vanished first. Then the transports. Tiny lights. Gone in silence. Another civilization erased. The tactical display updated instantly. Xyrath Dominion conquests. 143. No defeats. Not one. Varos leaned back into his command throne as the bridge returned to its usual rhythm. Officers exchanged reports. Navigation systems recalculated routes. Weapons arrays cooled after planetary bombardment. Routine. All of it routine. That was the real power of the Dominion. Not merely strength. Certainty. The galaxy no longer surprised them. An intelligence advisor stepped onto the lower platform carrying a thin black data prism. Supreme Warlord, she said carefully. There is one remaining matter requiring authorization. Varos extended one hand. The prism activated above his palm, projecting a rotating image of a small blue world. A primitive planet orbiting an average yellow star. Designation, Sol, 3. Local species name, Humanity. Varos almost dismissed the file immediately. The outer systems were full of undeveloped civilizations. Most destroyed themselves before becoming spacefaring threats. But one detail stopped him. 2 Xyrath observation probes had disappeared near the system within the last decade. Not destroyed. Missing. The advisor continued. Human civilization remains pre-expansion level. Internal conflict rate extremely high. No confirmed interstellar fleet capability. Technological progression inconsistent but accelerating. Images rotated beside the planet. Wars. Riots. Political disputes. Collapsing economies. Primitive aircraft. Chemical rockets. Varos watched silently. Humans looked fragile. Soft skin. Weak skeletal structure. Short lifespans. Chaotic governments. The advisor shifted uneasily. There is one anomaly. Varos looked at her. The missing probes. She nodded. The final transmission from Probe 7 included a partial energy distortion signature before signal loss. Natural phenomenon? Possibly. That answer irritated her even as she gave it. Varos noticed. You disagree. The advisor hesitated. Yes, Supreme Warlord. Why? She inhaled slowly. The distortion resembles a controlled interception field. Silence settled across the bridge. Then several officers exchanged amused glances. A primitive world intercepting Xyrath reconnaissance technology? Absurd. Varos studied Earth again for several seconds. Then he closed the file. One ship, he said. The advisor blinked. Supreme Warlord? Send a single conquest vessel. The bridge grew quieter. One vessel is sufficient for primitives. He stood from the throne and looked toward the stars beyond the command deck. If they surrender, absorb them into labor classification. And if they resist? The advisor asked carefully. Varos's expression never changed. Then humanity will become lesson number 144. The Xyrath conquest vessel Oblivion Spear entered the Sol system 17 days later. Commander Therex stood at the center of the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back while the star system slowly rotated across the tactical display before him. One yellow star. 8 planets. Countless moons. Unremarkable. Exactly the kind of system the Dominion ignored for centuries. The sensor officer spoke without concern. No military fleet signatures detected. Planetary defenses? Theric asked. Minimal. The officer enlarged the image of Earth. Blue oceans. White cloud systems. Dense population centers glowing across the night side. Primitive orbital traffic surrounded the planet. Communication satellites, civilian stations, cargo relays. None of it remotely threatening. Another officer gave a quiet snort of amusement. These are the probe destroyers? A few restrained laughs spread across the bridge. Theric did not join them, but privately he agreed. Everything about humanity looked disorganized. The Xyrath had spent decades observing Earth through hidden probes positioned throughout the outer system. The reports were almost embarrassing to read. Humans fought constantly. Nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. Religious conflicts. Economic collapses. Civil unrest. Cyber warfare. Even their information networks were chaos. Half the species appeared to spend its time arguing with the other half. Theric walked slowly toward the main display. Lifespan. Average, 79 local years. He almost smiled. Short-lived species rarely became major powers. They simply did not have enough time to accumulate wisdom before dying. And unified government? The officer paused. Technically present. Functionally unstable. That earned actual laughter. Theric finally allowed himself a faint expression of amusement. Primitive civilizations always imagined themselves more advanced than they were. Humanity had apparently created a united Earth assembly less than 40 years ago after several near-global crises. But even now the planet remained divided into economic blocs, political alliances, and military territories. A species pretending to be united. Not truly united. Another officer rotated a holographic feed above the tactical table. Current planetary activities. Images appeared rapidly. Entertainment broadcasts. Stock markets. Sporting events. Political debates. Traffic systems. Civilian airports. Humanity was continuing normal life completely unaware that a Xyrath conquest vessel had entered their system 12 hours earlier. Theric watched an especially loud political debate for several seconds before dismissing the feed. They do not even monitor deep space approach vectors? Apparently not. Incredible. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as the ship adjusted course toward Earth. The conquest vessel did not bother concealing itself. There was no reason to. Fear worked better when civilizations had time to understand what was coming. Theric sat down at the command platform while another report appeared beside him. Sol System Threat Assessment. Fleet capability, negligible. Planetary shielding, absent. Orbital weapons, none detected. Interception systems, none detected. Probability of surrender after ultimatum, 97.4%. Normal. Entirely normal. Only one detail remained irritating. Probe 7. Theric reopened the final transmission. Static flickered across the screen before freezing on a distorted burst of energy readings. Incomplete. Fragmented. But strangely focused. His tactical analyst stepped closer. I still believe it was mechanical failure, Commander? Probably. But Theric kept staring at the distortion. Because it looked deliberate. That was the uncomfortable part. Not strong. Not advanced. Deliberate. As if something had seen the probe. He closed the report. Prepare surrender transmission protocols. Yes, Commander. And activate surface targeting solutions. The officer looked surprised. For a primitive world? Theric's expression hardened slightly. I dislike mysteries. The officer bowed immediately. Outside the massive forward-viewing screen, Earth slowly grew larger. Bright. Peaceful. Completely unaware. Far below those clouds, billions of humans continued ordinary life. Commuting to work. Drinking coffee. Arguing online. Sitting in classrooms. Planning futures. None of them knew a conquest vessel longer than their largest cities was approaching from deep space. None of them knew their species had already been judged. Theric leaned back calmly. In less than one planetary rotation, Earth would receive the standard Dominion ultimatum. Surrender. Submission. Absorption. And like the 143 civilizations before them, humanity would kneel. Or so he believed. Admiral Elias Ward hated cold coffee. Unfortunately, over the past 20 years, cold coffee had become a permanent part of his life. He stood alone inside Monitoring Chamber 7 beneath the Rocky Mountains while dozens of holographic displays floated around him in pale blue light. Data streams moved continuously across the air. Gravitational readings. Deep space trajectories. Thermal signatures. Orbital scans. At the center of every screen was the same object. The Xyrath conquest vessel Oblivion Spear. Distance to Earth, 2.8 million kilometers. Estimated arrival time, 14 hours. Ward picked up his coffee mug, realized it had gone cold again and quietly set it back down. No one else in the room spoke. The analysts already understood what the silence meant. The day had finally come. A young intelligence officer approached carefully. Confirmation complete, Admiral. Hull profile matches Dominion Conquest class architecture. Ward nodded once. No attempt at stealth? None. That almost made him smile. Of course they weren't hiding. The Xyrath never hid from weaker species. They arrived openly because fear was part of the invasion process. Ward turned toward the massive central display. Earth rotated slowly beneath layers of tactical information invisible to the civilian world. Orbital defense grids. Hidden weapon platforms. Encrypted fleet routes. Classified launch systems. Everything humanity had built in secret for 6 decades. Waiting. Preparing. A second officer spoke quietly. The United Assembly is requesting immediate public disclosure. Ward exhaled slowly. Denied. The officer hesitated. Sir, with respect, once the ship enters visual range. I know. Ward walked toward the observation window at the far end of the chamber. Beyond the reinforced glass, the underground command complex stretched for hundreds of meters beneath the mountain. Personnel moved rapidly now. No panic. Just motion. Disciplined. Focused. Prepared. That mattered. Fear spread downward from leadership. Calm did too. Ward looked at his own reflection in the glass for a moment. Gray hair. Sunken eyes. Too many sleepless years. He did not look like the man responsible for the largest covert military project in human history. That had always been intentional. For 60 years, humanity had hidden its preparations beneath ordinary civilization. The official explanation for the orbital platforms? Communication infrastructure. The lunar construction zones? Mining operations? The deep space sensor arrays? Astronomical research stations. Everything hidden in plain sight. Because once humanity intercepted the first alien probe 60 years earlier, the truth had become unavoidable. They were not alone. And sooner or later, someone would come. A soft electronic tone interrupted his thoughts. Incoming secure channel. Ward touched the console. Dr. Lena Mercer appeared above the projector table almost instantly. Her dark hair was tied back hastily, and the bright laboratory lights behind her revealed technicians moving frantically around enormous pieces of machinery. She got straight to the point. The containment systems are fully charged. Final calibration? Completed 30 minutes ago. Ward nodded. And the shield network? A faint expression crossed her face. Better than projected. That was the closest thing Lena Mercer ever gave to optimism. Ward trusted her more than almost anyone alive. 23 years earlier she had been a university physicist studying impossible energy readings recovered from a damaged alien probe. Now she was the architect of humanity's most dangerous technologies. Technologies built directly from stolen Xyrath systems. Improved stolen systems. Ward lowered his voice slightly. Can they tell? Mercer understood immediately. That we reverse-engineered their technology? She shook her head. Not until combat begins. Good. A new alert flashed across the tactical display. The Oblivion Spear had crossed the outer defensive perimeter. No evasive maneuvers. No caution. No reconnaissance deployment. The Xyrath vessel moved with the confidence of a predator entering an empty field. Ward stared at the incoming trajectory. They think we're defenseless, the intelligence officer said quietly. Ward's eyes never left the display. From their perspective, he replied, we are. Silence settled briefly across the chamber. Then another alert appeared. Lunar Fleet Command ready for activation. Ward finally picked up the cold coffee again and forced himself to drink it. Bitter. Terrible. Necessary. He touched the command console. Notify all stations. The room became still. Ward's voice remained calm. Condition black. Across Earth, hidden systems began waking up. Deep beneath oceans. Inside mountains. Under polar ice. On the dark side of the moon. For 60 years humanity had prepared in silence. Now the silence was ending. The first sign that something was wrong appeared above the Pacific Ocean. At 6:14 Universal Time Coordinated, thousands of commercial satellites simultaneously lost signal for exactly 1.8 seconds. Television broadcasts froze. Radio frequencies distorted. Military communication systems across 43 nations experienced synchronized interference. Then every screen on Earth changed at once. Phones, tablets, billboards, aircraft monitors, news broadcasts, traffic displays. Even old analog televisions connected to basic receivers flickered violently before stabilizing. And suddenly, there was a face staring at humanity. The being on the screen was tall, armored, and utterly expressionless. Dark metallic skin reflected dim blue light from the bridge surrounding him. His eyes were silver white and completely unreadable. Commander Tharek of the Xyrath Dominion looked directly into the cameras of Earth. Behind him hung the image of the Oblivion Spear. A warship large enough to eclipse cities. For several seconds he simply stared silently at the planet. Not nervous. Not angry. Certain. Then he spoke. His language sounded sharp and mechanical, but almost instantly another voice layered itself beneath the original transmission in every major human language simultaneously. English, Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, Russian, Hindi, French. The translation was flawless. People of Earth, the voice said calmly. Your system has been claimed by the Xyrath Dominion. Around the world, billions of humans froze where they stood. Traffic stopped. Restaurants went silent. Entire cities seemed to pause mid-breath. Tharek continued without emotion. You are in violation of Dominion territorial expansion protocols. Resistance is neither advised nor strategically rational. The image behind him shifted. A planet appeared. Burning. Cracked apart from orbit. The same image the Dominion showed every civilization before conquest. In 12 of your planetary hours, you will transmit formal surrender authorization. Another image appeared, massive labor colonies beneath alien skies. Compliance guarantees survival under Dominion administration. Then the burning planet returned. Resistance guarantees extinction. No dramatic music. No shouting. No threats delivered with rage. That was what made it terrifying. He sounded like someone explaining gravity. Inevitable. Absolute. Tharek looked directly into the camera one final time. Choose carefully. The transmission ended instantly. Every screen on Earth returned to normal. For 3 full seconds. The planet was silent. Then humanity exploded into chaos. Emergency sirens activated across major cities. Social media networks collapsed beneath unprecedented traffic surges. Stock markets suspended operation globally within 9 minutes. Military aircraft launched across dozens of nations while civilians flooded streets staring upward at the morning sky as though expecting the warship itself to appear above the clouds. In New York, millions gathered around public screens replaying the transmission. In Tokyo, subway systems shut down after panic-induced stampedes. In Berlin, churches filled within an hour. In Mumbai, traffic completely locked across entire districts. Everywhere. People looked upward, and found nothing, which somehow made it worse, because the enemy was out there somewhere above the atmosphere, watching. Inside the underground United Earth Assembly bunker beneath Geneva, world leaders shouted over each other across the circular emergency chamber. This could be psychological warfare. How do we know the transmission is real? Our orbital systems confirmed the vessel 6 hours ago. We need evacuation protocols immediately. Evacuate where? Fear filled the room like smoke. At the far end of the chamber, Admiral Elias Ward sat silently beneath the projection screens with a closed black folder resting in front of him. He had not opened it once, because he already knew everything inside. The Assembly Secretary finally looked toward him. Admiral, she said carefully, you've seen the vessel. What is your military assessment? The chamber slowly quieted. Ward folded his hands calmly. My assessment, he said, is that they sent one ship. Several leaders stared at him. That is your concern right now? Someone demanded. Yes. Ward stood slowly. One conquest vessel. Not a fleet. Not an invasion force. One ship. He looked around the chamber at frightened faces. They sent one ship because every civilization they've encountered surrendered before serious resistance began. Silence spread gradually across the room. Ward continued. They believe humanity is weak. Above the chamber, massive tactical displays suddenly activated. Orbital defense grids appeared around Earth. Hidden stations, weapons platforms, fleet markers. Thousands of classified military assets filled the holographic globe. Several world leaders physically stood from their seats in shock. Ward's voice remained perfectly steady. For 60 years, he said quietly, we have been preparing for this moment. The room stared at him in disbelief. Far above Earth, the Oblivion Spear continued drifting toward the planet. Confident, unhurried, completely unaware that humanity had just stopped pretending to be defenseless. 720 words. Commander Tharek received humanity's response exactly 32 minutes after the ultimatum broadcast. It was not a surrender signal. It was silence. That annoyed him more than he expected. The Oblivion Spear continued its steady approach through the inner solar system while long-range scans monitored Earth constantly. The Conquest vessel's sensor system swept across orbital space every few seconds, analyzing satellites, communication relays, and civilian infrastructure. Nothing looked threatening. And yet, something felt wrong. Tharek stood near the central tactical display while his sensor officers worked through fresh data streams. No planetary evacuation patterns, one officer reported. Military mobilization? Limited. That made no sense. Primitive civilizations usually reacted in predictable ways. Panic, mass migration, emergency transmissions, chaotic military deployment. Humanity was reacting strangely. Civilian communication networks were overloaded, yes. Governments were clearly scrambling. But Earth's major military powers were not launching full defensive operations. No missile swarms. No orbital fighter deployment. No visible planetary shield activation. Almost as though they weren't relying on conventional defenses. Tharek narrowed his eyes slightly. Run another deep scan of orbital infrastructure. The sensor officer obeyed immediately. Hundreds of objects appeared around Earth. Communication platforms, cargo relays, weather satellites, research stations. Normal. Entirely normal. And yet the tactical algorithms kept flagging tiny inconsistencies. Orbital spacing too precise. Energy fluctuations too stable. Structural densities slightly too high for civilian construction. Tharek studied the readouts carefully. Magnify Platform Cluster 7. A ring of large communication stations appeared above Earth's equator. Cold metal structures rotating silently in orbit. The officer frowned. Unusual power distribution. How unusual? Minimal external transmission activity despite significant reactor output. Another officer looked over. That could indicate shielded processing cores. On communication stations? Silence. Tharek stepped closer. For the first time since entering the system, genuine caution crept into the bridge atmosphere. Not fear. Not yet. But caution. Far below, hidden beneath the surface of the moon's dark side, Fleet Command Hangar 12 came alive. Massive blast doors slowly separated while rows of warships emerged from shadow for the first time in years. The ships did not resemble traditional human designs anymore. Their hulls were sharper, cleaner, more angular. Alien technology flowed beneath human engineering in ways the Xyrath would never immediately recognize. Commander Naomi Reyes walked through the central launch deck while technicians rushed around her. Fuel systems active. Weapons online. Shield harmonics stable. For 18 years she had trained for exactly one battle. Not theoretically. Not abstractly. Specifically. Every simulation, every tactical drill, every combat exercise, all built around fighting a Xyrath conquest vessel. A young officer approached her. All strike groups ready, Commander. Reyes nodded once. No speeches. No dramatic preparation. Professionals did not need inspiration before doing their jobs. Above the launch bay, enormous holographic tactical displays tracked the Oblivion Spear in real time. Distance closing steadily. Like a predator walking into a trap it could not see. Meanwhile, beneath the Arctic ice shelf nearly 2 kilometers below the surface, Dr. Lena Mercer stood inside Chamber 14 surrounded by machines no civilian government officially knew existed. The room hummed with restrained energy. Massive circular structures lined the chamber walls, each connected through superconductive conduits thick as train tunnels. The containment grid. Humanity's most classified defense project. Mercer walked slowly between technicians checking synchronization readings. Field stability? 99.3%. Phase alignment? Locked. Good. But not perfect. Nothing this large was ever perfect. That was the terrifying part. The systems they were preparing to use had never been tested in real combat conditions. Not fully. Humanity had built them from recovered Xyrath technology over decades of reverse engineering. Piece by piece. Layer by layer. Improving every weakness they found. Mercer stopped beside a transparent containment cylinder holding the broken remains of an old alien probe recovered 21 years earlier from the Pacific Ocean floor. The probe that changed everything. The first proof humanity could learn from the enemy. She stared at the shattered machine quietly. "You should never have come here," she whispered. Her comm unit activated instantly. Admiral Ward's voice filled the chamber. "Status. Containment systems operational. And the orbital grid?" Mercer checked the latest synchronization feed. All stations linked. A brief silence followed. Then Ward asked the real question. "Can we stop them?" Mercer looked toward the enormous machines surrounding her. Machines humanity had spent 60 years building in secret. Machines designed specifically to kill a species that believed itself unbeatable. Finally she answered quietly. "Yes." Above Earth, Commander Tharek continued studying the strange orbital infrastructure surrounding the planet. Something about it bothered him deeply now. The stations were too organized, too deliberate, and for the first time since entering the Sol system, the Xyrath commander began to suspect humanity had been waiting for them. 640 words. The 12-hour deadline expired at 4 o'clock Universal Time Coordinated. Earth sent no surrender transmission. No negotiation request. No diplomatic response. Nothing. Inside the bridge of the Oblivion Spear, Commander Tharek stared at the silent communications display while the final seconds disappeared from the tactical clock. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. The deadline exceeded. The bridge remained quiet. Several officers exchanged uncertain looks. Tharek sat motionless in his command chair. Primitive species always answered. Always. Even defiant civilizations sent threats or emotional speeches or desperate bargaining attempts. Humanity had sent absolutely nothing, which somehow felt worse. The communications officer turned carefully. "No transmission received, Commander." Tharek looked toward Earth. The planet rotated peacefully beneath cloud systems and city lights, looking impossibly calm for a world standing on the edge of annihilation. He spoke evenly. "Prepare primary strike." The bridge immediately came alive. Weapons arrays charging. Targeting solutions locking. Energy systems rerouting across the ship's internal grid. On the main display, a flashing red marker settled over the eastern coast of North America. Population center selected. New York megacity zone. Estimated casualties, 27 million. Routine. Tharek stood slowly and walked toward the forward observation screen. "Full yield demonstration strike," he ordered. A junior officer hesitated. "Commander, against a primitive world, perhaps reduced output would be sufficient." Tharek silenced him with a glance. This species ignored a Dominion ultimatum. The officer lowered his head instantly. "Yes, Commander." The ship's primary weapon continued charging. Deep vibrations spread through the Oblivion Spear as energy built inside the spinal cannon running nearly half the vessel's length. Outside the ship, blue-white light gathered around the weapon aperture like a miniature star forming in darkness. Far below on Earth, millions of people watched the object in the sky through telescopes, satellites, and live news feeds. Most still could not truly comprehend what they were seeing. But inside the underground command center beneath Geneva, everyone understood. Admiral Ward stood beside the central tactical display without moving. Dr. Mercer's voice came through the secure channel. "Energy spike confirmed." General Reyes spoke next from Lunar Fleet Command. "Orbital grid synchronized." Ward's eyes never left the display. "Hold positions." The tactical officer looked at him carefully. "Sir, if we wait any longer?" "We wait. Because timing mattered. Everything depended on timing." Above Earth, Commander Tharek lowered one hand. "Fire." The Oblivion Spear unleashed its weapon. A colossal beam of white-blue energy erupted across space with enough force to split mountains apart. The blast crossed the distance toward Earth almost instantly, illuminating orbital space brighter than daylight. On Earth, people screamed. News anchors froze mid-sentence. Entire cities watched death falling from the sky. And then, Something moved. One of the orbital communication platforms rotated suddenly. Fast. Far too fast for a civilian structure. Massive armored sections unfolded across its surface while hidden energy conduits ignited beneath layers of disguised plating. A shield bloomed into existence directly between Earth and the incoming strike. The beam hit the platform head-on. The world expected explosion, destruction, impact. Instead, the platform held. The energy strike vanished into the shield in a violent burst of light that illuminated half the planet's atmosphere. Shockwaves rolled across orbit. But the station remained exactly where it was. Intact. Operational. Silent. On the bridge of the Oblivion Sphere, nobody spoke. Commander Therex stared at the tactical display without blinking. The impossible image remained frozen before him. A primitive orbital station. Intercepting a Xyrath conquest weapon. And surviving. One officer finally whispered, "What?" Then the tactical alarms began screaming. Across Earth's orbit, dozens of communication platforms suddenly activated simultaneously. Massive armored weapon systems emerged from beneath hidden civilian exteriors. Energy signatures exploded across the tactical grid. Targeting arrays locked onto the Oblivion Sphere from every direction. The sensor officer's voice cracked for the first time. "Commander, those are not civilian stations." Therek watched the orbital structures rotate in perfect synchronization. Cold realization spread slowly through the bridge. Humanity had lied. Not emotionally. Not diplomatically. Strategically. For decades. And now the mask was gone. Far below Earth's atmosphere, Admiral Ward finally spoke. "Activate Defensive Phase 1. In orbit above the planet. 24 hidden weapons platforms opened fire simultaneously. The first volley struck the Oblivion Sphere from 24 different angles simultaneously. Commander Therek felt the deck tremble beneath his boots as the conquest vessel's shields absorbed the impacts in rapid succession. Not random fire. Coordinated fire. That realization hit him instantly. The hidden orbital platforms were cycling their attacks with precise timing delays, each shot landing milliseconds apart in order to prevent the ship's shield system from fully redistributing defensive load. Someone had studied Xyrath shield architecture closely. Deflection field holding at 92%, the weapons officer reported. But his voice lacked confidence now. Therek remained standing at the tactical display while more alarms illuminated across the bridge. The orbital stations were repositioning constantly, shifting firing angles after every volley in order to stress different sections of the shield grid. Professional behavior. Military behavior. Not improvisation. The Conquest commander narrowed his eyes. How long have those stations been operational? The sensor officer worked frantically through the data. Structural decay patterns indicate 12 to 15 local years. Silence spread across the bridge. 15 years. Humanity had hidden combat stations in orbit for over a decade while Dominion probes scanned the system repeatedly without discovering them. That was not luck. That was discipline. Another impact shook the ship harder this time. Deflection field at 87%. Too fast. The shield should not be degrading this quickly against primitive weapons. Therek stepped closer to the display. Magnify enemy energy signatures. The holographic feed expanded instantly. Shield harmonics. Weapon frequencies. Targeting architecture. And suddenly the truth became horribly obvious. The human systems were based on Xyrath technology. Modified Xyrath technology. Improved Xyrath technology. The tactical AI confirmed it seconds later. Enemy shield architecture shares 71% structural similarity with Dominion deflection systems. The bridge became deathly quiet. One officer whispered, "They reverse-engineered us." Another volley slammed into the ship. This time several impacts penetrated partially through weakened shield layers before dissipating against the armored hull. Warning lights flashed crimson across the bridge. Localized shield failures on sectors 4 and 7. Therek's expression hardened immediately. Return fire. Full batteries. The Oblivion Sphere retaliated. 16 heavy plasma arrays erupted at once, flooding orbital space with overwhelming destructive force. The nearest human platform vanished instantly beneath the barrage, breaking apart into molten debris. A second station exploded seconds later. Several Xyrath officers visibly relaxed. There. Proof. Human defenses could still be destroyed. But then the tactical officer froze. "Commander." Therek looked up sharply. Two new stations emerged from low orbit beneath Earth's atmosphere, rising silently into the exact positions of the destroyed platforms. Replacement units. The human defense grid repaired itself in real time. And before the Xyrath bridge could fully process that, new contacts appeared. Hundreds of them. Small objects rising rapidly from Earth's surface in coordinated formations. Drone swarms. Thousands of compact attack drones accelerated into orbital space like metallic storms, each moving unpredictably while transmitting overlapping interference signals. The tactical officer's voice tightened. They're targeting our secondary batteries. The first swarm hit moments later. Small individually. Devastating collectively. Explosive drones detonated against turret housings while electronic warfare units flooded the Oblivion Spear's tracking systems with false targets. Secondary weapons began missing. Then failing. Then going dark entirely. Theric finally understood what he was looking at. Not defenses. A layered kill system. Every part designed to support every other part. The orbital platforms forced shield redistribution. The drones disrupted weapon tracking. Replacement stations sustained pressure continuously. And somewhere behind all of it, humans were directing the engagement deliberately. The conquest vessel shuddered violently again. Deflection field at 73%. Impossible. No primitive species should have been capable of this level of coordinated warfare. Theric activated direct tactical analysis personally. The display expanded around him. Orbital geometry. Weapons synchronization. Shield stress patterns. Then he saw it. Minefields. Thousands of dormant objects hidden among orbital debris clusters. Not randomly placed. Positioned mathematically. The mines were funneling the Oblivion Spear toward specific engagement zones where the orbital stations maintained maximum overlapping fire coverage. Humanity had built the battlefield itself. Over decades. One officer looked physically ill. "Commander, this was planned." Theric ignored him because the statement no longer required saying aloud. Of course it was planned. Everything about the battle proved preparation. The synchronized fire cycles. The disguised infrastructure. The reverse-engineered shields. The drone coordination. The orbital kill geometry. This was not desperation. This was anticipation. Humanity had expected the Dominion to arrive someday. And they had spent generations preparing specifically for this moment. Another violent impact rolled through the ship. Deflection field at 68%. Too dangerous. Too fast. Theric made his decision immediately. Advance toward the planet. Several officers looked startled. "Commander? If we remain inside their orbital engagement envelope, they will continue stripping the shield grid apart piece by piece." He pointed toward Earth. "Move beneath the station network. Close-range engagement." The helmsman obeyed instantly. The massive conquest vessel surged forward toward Earth's atmosphere, engines burning brighter against the darkness. On the human tactical displays beneath Geneva, Admiral Ward watched the movement without surprise. General Reyes appeared beside him via secure transmission from Lunar Fleet Command. "He's pushing inward," she said. "As predicted," Ward replied calmly. The tactical officer looked up. "Sir, should we deploy the fleet?" Ward watched the Oblivion Spear move exactly where humanity wanted it. Then he nodded once. "Yes." Far beyond the moon's dark side, 18 hidden warships powered on simultaneously. The first human warship emerged from behind the moon like a blade sliding from darkness. Then 17 more followed. Commander Theric stared at the tactical display as new contact alerts flooded across the bridge of the Oblivion Spear. Unknown vessels. 18 total. Attack formation. For the first time since entering the Sol system, the Xyrath commander felt genuine unease. The ships were smaller than Dominion conquest vessels, barely 1/5 the size of the Oblivion Spear, but they moved with terrifying precision. Not drifting into combat. Positioning. Every vessel maintained exact spacing relative to the others while accelerating toward the battlefield in 3 synchronized attack lines. Someone had drilled this formation hundreds of times. The sensor officer spoke rapidly. Drive signatures contain modified Dominion propulsion architecture. Another officer looked horrified. "They improved our engines too?" Theric ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on the approaching fleet. The human ships did not resemble anything in Dominion records. Angular black hulls. Minimal heat leakage. Adaptive armor plating. And no visible insignias except a single silver symbol painted across each bow. A circle surrounding Earth. Humanity had built an entire war fleet in secret. Right under Dominion surveillance. The tactical alarms screamed louder. All enemy ships locking weapons. Therek reacted instantly. Primary batteries, target lead vessels. Fire continuously. The Oblivion Spear unleashed another devastating barrage. Massive plasma streams crossed orbital space toward the incoming fleet. One of the lead human ships took a direct hit. Its shields collapsed instantly. Armor ruptured. Entire sections of the hull exploded outward into space. But the vessel did not break formation. It kept advancing. Inside the damaged flagship UES Resolute, Commander Naomi Reyes gripped her tactical rail tightly while warning lights flashed across the bridge. Port shield failure confirmed. Decks 3 through 6 vented. Casualty reports incoming. Reyes never raised her voice. Maintain attack vector. The bridge crew obeyed immediately. Because every person aboard understood the plan. The fleet was never supposed to avoid damage. It was supposed to survive long enough to close the trap completely. Reyes watched the tactical countdown carefully. Range decreasing rapidly. The Oblivion Spear was enormous, but size had become a weakness now. The larger the vessel, the harder it became to redistribute shield energy against simultaneous multi-angle attacks. Exactly what humanity had trained for. Another Xyrath volley struck the fleet. A second human ship lost its forward shield array entirely. A third spun sideways after suffering engine damage. But none retreated. They kept advancing through the fire. Relentlessly. Back aboard the Oblivion Spear, Therek watched the impossible human persistence with growing disbelief. Primitive civilizations were supposed to break under superior firepower. These humans adapted under it. Deflection field at 54%, his weapons officer shouted. Too low. Far too low. The orbital stations were still firing from behind. Drone swarms still flooded the engagement zone. Minefields restricted maneuvering. And now 18 warships were attacking from the front in synchronized waves. The conquest vessel was being boxed in from every direction. Then the humans changed tactics again. 6 ships suddenly broke formation simultaneously. Therek frowned. What are they doing? The answer came seconds later. The 6 vessels accelerated outward in a widening spiral around the Oblivion Spear, each moving toward carefully selected firing positions. Not random. Calculated. The tactical AI responded immediately. Warning. Enemy vessels aligning for harmonic shield disruption pattern. Therek's expression darkened. They knew about harmonic reinforcement cycles. Impossible. No alien species should understand Dominion shield mathematics this deeply. Then the 6 ships fired. The attack hit from 6 separate angles at the exact same millisecond. The Oblivion Spear's shield system tried to compensate automatically, and failed. The deflection field collapsed across the starboard side instantly. A section nearly 300 meters wide vanished in white light. Armor disintegrated. Weapon arrays exploded. Internal compartments vented directly into space. The entire conquest vessel lurched violently sideways. Bridge lights flickered. Several officers were thrown from their stations. Shield collapse on sectors 9 through 14. Hull breach confirmed. Primary battery 3 destroyed. Therek caught himself against the command platform while staring at the damage reports in disbelief. They had folded the shield geometry. Not overwhelmed it. Not brute forced it. Solved it. Humanity had spent decades studying Dominion defensive architecture until they discovered mathematically impossible firing solutions. The realization hit harder than the damage itself. They knew the Xyrath better than the Xyrath knew humanity. Inside the Resolute, Commander Reyes saw the opening appear across the enemy hull. Strike package successful, her tactical officer reported. Reyes nodded sharply. Repeat attack pattern. Rotate firing angles 30 degrees. Every ship adjusted immediately. Perfect discipline. Perfect timing. The second strike hit 12 seconds later. Another section of the Oblivion Spear's shields failed catastrophically. Explosions rippled along the conquest vessel's outer hull. Back on the Xyrath bridge, warning sirens became deafening. Deflection field at 36%. Long-range communications damaged. Secondary reactor instability detected. Therek stared at the tactical display. He finally understood the truth completely. Humanity had not survived because it was lucky. Humanity had survived because it had been preparing for war longer than the Dominion realized. Every missing probe. Every strange signal. Every unnoticed satellite. All of it had been humanity learning. Watching. Building. Waiting. And now the trap had fully closed. Then the worst alert of all appeared across the tactical display. Containment field signature detected. Theric looked up sharply. What containment field? Before anyone answered, massive energy anchors slammed into the hull of the Oblivion Spear from multiple directions simultaneously. The conquest vessel shuddered violently. And suddenly, it stopped moving. The containment field locked around the Oblivion Spear like an invisible prison. Commander Theric felt it immediately. Not physically. Systemically. Every engine output dropped to near zero. Power surges flattened. Energy distribution froze mid-cycle. The conquest vessel still existed, but it could no longer function properly. Bridge officers shouted over one another while warning lights flooded every display. Drive systems unresponsive. Reactor output suppressed. Shield regeneration halted. Containment field surrounding entire vessel. Theric gripped the edge of the command platform hard enough to bend the metal beneath his fingers. Impossible. Containment technology on this scale belonged only to advanced Dominion military research divisions. Even then it remained unstable. Humanity had not only replicated it, they had perfected it. Outside the ship, streams of pale blue energy wrapped around the Oblivion Spear from 12 orbital stations positioned across Earth's defensive network. The field pulsed rhythmically like a living thing. Holding. Compressing. Controlling. The conquest vessel tried to accelerate. Nothing happened. It was trapped. Back inside Earth Command beneath Geneva, Admiral Elias Ward watched the containment grid stabilize across the tactical display. The room remained calm despite the magnitude of what humanity had just accomplished. No cheering. No celebration. Professionals stayed focused until the job ended. Dr. Lena Mercer appeared beside the tactical table via live transmission from Chamber 14. Containment holding at 98% efficiency. Ward nodded once. Can the ship still self-destruct? Mercer hesitated. Not unless they overload the primary reactor manually. That was enough. Ward turned toward General Reyes. Open a direct channel. Seconds later, the secure transmission linked directly to the bridge of the Oblivion Spear. The massive tactical screen flickered. Commander Theric appeared. The proud certainty that had once defined him was gone now, replaced by rigid controlled fury. Ward looked directly into the alien commander's eyes. Then he spoke in fluent Xyrith. The bridge of the Oblivion Spear went completely silent. Theric's expression shifted instantly. Real shock. For decades humanity had listened quietly to intercepted Dominion communications. Studied their language. Decoded their structures. Prepared. Ward continued calmly. I am Admiral Elias Ward, commander of the Unified Earth Defense Fleet. His pronunciation was not perfect, but it was close enough. You are surrounded. Your vessel is contained. Your shields are compromised and your offensive capability has collapsed. Behind Ward, the tactical display showed the Oblivion Spear trapped within layers of human warships, orbital platforms and containment fields. No escape routes remained. Ward folded his hands behind his back. I am offering you the opportunity to surrender. The Xyrith officers on Theric's bridge looked physically disturbed by the sentence itself. Dominion commanders did not receive surrender offers from primitive species. They gave them. Ward's voice remained perfectly steady. You and your crew will be treated according to human military law. Medical aid will be provided. Prisoners will not be harmed. Silence followed. Theric stared at him with pale silver eyes burning beneath the bridge lights. Finally he spoke. You are primitives. Ward said nothing. You live on a single world, Theric continued coldly. Your species has existed for a fraction of Dominion history. You cannot comprehend the scale of what stands behind us. Ward answered quietly. Perhaps. The Xyrith commander stepped closer to the screen. The Dominion will come for you now. Yes, Ward replied. They will burn your world. Maybe. They will erase your species. Ward's expression never changed. But not today. That answer hung heavily across both bridges. For the first time since entering the Sol system, Commander Theric understood what true strategic failure looked like. Not losing a battle. Underestimating an enemy so completely that the battle was already decided before it began. He straightened slowly. The Xyrith Dominion does not surrender. Ward studied him silently for several seconds. When he finally spoke again, there was no triumph in his voice. Only disappointment. That is unfortunate. He reached toward the console beside him. Because I was offering mercy. The transmission ended. Back aboard the Oblivion Spear, several officers looked toward Theric uncertainly. Then the tactical alarms changed tone. A new energy signature appeared across every display simultaneously. Massive, unfamiliar, and terrifyingly powerful. The sensor officer's voice nearly failed. Commander. He stared at the readings in horror. They're charging another weapon. Deep beneath the Arctic ice, Dr. Lena Mercer stood alone at the center of Chamber 14 while the disintegration array awakened around her. The machines did not roar. They hummed. Full. Controlled. Precise. 12 orbital stations across Earth synchronized simultaneously as enormous streams of energy linked through the containment grid surrounding the Oblivion Sphere. The tactical displays filled with alignment calculations, molecular frequency mapping, structural resonance targeting, energy cascade timing. Every number had to be perfect, because the weapon humanity was about to use had never been tested against something this large before. Mercer stared at the rotating wire frame of the trapped conquest vessel. 4 kilometers long. Thousands aboard. A warship that had erased civilizations for centuries. And yet she still hesitated. Not because the Xyrath deserved mercy, but because weapons like this change civilizations forever. Once humanity crossed this line, there would be no going back. Her comm channel activated. Admiral Ward's voice came through quietly. Status. Mercer looked at the final synchronization countdown. Array aligned. Pause. Then Ward asked the question neither of them truly wanted answered. Will it work? Mercer stared at the tactical model of the Oblivion Sphere trapped inside the containment field. Yes, she said softly. Above Earth, Commander Tharek watched helplessly as the unknown energy signature continued building around his ship. The tactical AI could not classify it. That frightened him more than anything else had. The Dominion cataloged all known weapons technologies across hundreds of civilizations. Nothing matched these readings. The conquest vessel strained uselessly against the containment field while emergency systems failed one after another. Weapons offline. Shields collapsing. Engines frozen. And outside the hull, human warships waited silently. Watching. Not celebrating. That unsettled Tharek deeply. Victorious species usually celebrated. These humans behaved like professionals completing necessary work. One of his officers turned toward him carefully. Commander, permission to attempt reactor overload. Self-destruction. The last option. Tharek considered it for only a moment before nodding once. Do it. The engineering crews initiated overload procedures immediately. Inside the reactor core, energy levels surged violently. And then stopped. Every display froze. The tactical AI spoke calmly. Containment field suppressing chain reaction. Several bridge officers stared in disbelief. The humans had anticipated self-destruction. Planned for it. Prepared counters for it. For the first time in his military career, Commander Tharek truly understood fear. Not fear of death. Fear of encountering an enemy who had studied you for decades while you never realized they were studying at all. Then the human transmission returned. Admiral Ward appeared once more on the bridge display. His face remained calm. Almost regretful. Commander Tharek, he said quietly, this is the final surrender request. Tharek said nothing. Ward continued. The weapon we are preparing to use cannot be survived. Silence. Then the Xyrath commander straightened slowly. Even defeated, he refused to appear weak. The Dominion will remember this world. Ward nodded once. I know. His face remained calm. Almost regretful. Commander Tharek, he said quietly, this is the final surrender request. Tharek said nothing. Ward continued. The weapon we are preparing to use cannot be survived. Silence. Then the Xyrath commander straightened slowly. Even defeated, he refused to appear weak. The Dominion will remember this world. Ward nodded once. I know. His face remained calm. Almost regretful. Commander Tharek, he said quietly, this is the final surrender request. Tharek said nothing. Ward continued. The weapon we are preparing to use cannot be survived. Silence. Then the Xyrath commander straightened slowly. Even defeated, he refused to appear weak. The Dominion will remember this world. Ward nodded once. I know. No fear. No denial. Just acceptance. That unsettled Tharek more than threats would have. Finally the alien commander spoke one last time. You should have surrendered. Ward's eyes hardened slightly for the first time. No, he said quietly. We should have prepared. The channel closed. Inside Chamber 14, Dr. Mercer placed her hand over the activation control. For a brief moment she thought about the first alien probe recovered 60 years earlier. Small. Broken. Mysterious. Humanity could have ignored it, could have panicked, could have surrendered to fear long before the Dominion ever arrived. Instead, they learned. They adapted. They prepared. Mercer closed her eyes briefly. Then she activated the array. Orbit above Earth exploded with light. 12 synchronized energy beams struck the containment field surrounding the Oblivion Spear simultaneously. But there was no explosion, no fireball, no shockwave. The conquest vessel simply came apart, slowly at first, then all at once. Its massive hull dissolved into glowing particles as molecular bonds collapsed throughout the ship simultaneously. Armor separated into dust. Weapons arrays unraveled into clouds of shining debris. The ship did not burn. It disintegrated. Within seconds, the 4-kilometer conquest vessel that had conquered entire civilizations ceased to exist. Nothing remained except expanding silver particles drifting silently above Earth. Across every human command center, nobody spoke. The battle was over. But everyone understood something larger had just begun. Far beyond the Sol system, deep inside Dominion territory, automated monitoring stations suddenly detected the disappearance of a conquest vessel. Then the loss of all communications. Then silence. For the first time in centuries, a Dominion warship had vanished. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the vast Zyrith Dominion began turning its attention toward a small blue planet called Earth. A planet that was never supposed to fight back. A planet that had spent 60 years preparing for war. And now, the galaxy was finally going to learn what humanity had become.